Snowflake and sand, a piece of the Creator's handicraft, lovely and chaste. On crystalline wings she fell from the sky, at the mercy of the winds that carried her. Floating and drifting with others on a similar path, where she would land would depend on the clouds that fostered her creation and the earth below. She saw no choices in her destiny. She knew nothing different. Her journey thus far was gentle. How else but to trust the hands of fate, not knowing the potentials of her journey? No two alike. That is the magnificence of this universe. How easy it is to trust when journeys in life are kind and gentle. The heavens above the clouds appear like flurries in one vast white snow-filled sky. Snowflakes become like stars falling from the heavens. They stand separate, apart. With their own soul they fly. To herself she quietly thought, let me be of the Creator's planned design. With the gentle journey there is no knowledge of those past, present, or future. Her travels to earth complete, she came to rest on an unfamiliar surface, surrounded by others like her, yet subtly, uniquely different. She would be subject to a similar outcome to those in her vicinity. Knew they of their destiny? Of their future? She felt the abrasiveness of her surroundings, the sand, harsh reality of her present experience on the edge of land and sea, the tide encroaching on her hold to the earth. The sand that held her tenuous grasp of separateness from sea, both her enemy and her savior. How could she be betrayed by a Creator who fashioned so much beauty and permitted such pain and destruction? A seemingly unsolvable paradox, perhaps not to be understood in this form of existence. Aware of the sea's harsh consumption of her brethren, frantically she held on to her unforgiving host. How could she use but a grain of sand as a refuge from the surf when the sand itself has no foundation? Was it the sand that held on to her? Closer and closer the surf came, ever aware of her imminent fate, only aware of her perceived destruction, not aware of the countless around her who would suffer a similar fate, unaware of their emotions, their perceptions, their beliefs. Did they feel the fear, the helplessness, the betrayal? Such beauty of each snowflake harshly extinguished. Fearful of her perceived extinction, she held even tighter, feeling betrayed by her Creator, not just for herself, but for the perceived treatment of the innocent that had not chosen such a cruel fate. Feeling small and insignificant, she questions her existence and reality only to grasp onto fear and the emotions that close our eyes to truth. It is the disruption of fear that separates us from our oneness in an attempt to ensure our survival at the expense of awareness. It teases us from seeing the true cycle of life and our endless existence in our communion with Creator. Feeling the harshness of her inhospitable host, in her betrayal and mistrust, she fails to realize that were it not for the most microscopic grain of sand that permitted her formation, she would not exist. A cooperative conspiracy of earth and sky to create infinite beauty. How often we choose to deny the necessity of both dark and light for life to exist. Tighter and tighter she held on, consumed by fear, the crashing waves surrounding her, seemingly teasing and toying with her, feeling the helplessness of terror that encroached from within as the waves seemed to consume all that was around her. She cursed her creators with a hatred that only served to mask her helplessness. She wished she could leap into the surf as if to spite him. As her silent war raged on with her invisible foe, she sensed the war only served to feed her hatred and helplessness that only satisfied who she came to know as the creator of cruel misfortune, taking her further and further away from what she felt in her soul. She recalled the truth of her creation from a place of love, what seemed like so long ago, as she drifted to earth. In a moment of clarity, accepting her destiny and releasing her fears in an embrace of a deeper faith, she began to hear the calmness around her and the rhythmical crash of the waves, looked up to see the beauty of her brethren in a snow-filled sky. She was not alone, nor were they. She had not appreciated that she was surrounded by so many, not to suffer a similar fate, but to share in a common experience. For what is the life cycle of a snowflake? And as a frothing surf approached her, she welcomed her future and her reunion with faith. She merged with the surf and was wrested from her unforgiving host. At one with the sea, the communion of souls, she did not hear the screams and terror envisioned for so long. Instead, she felt a calmness and peace faintly remembered, aware of so much more was an intended part of her path. And with the awareness of the sages, she realized it was not to be for sand and snow to merge, for sand will always be sand, while the potential of a tiny snowflake is so much more when she allows herself to live in concert with creation. January 2010.